Well, good morning, friends. I am not Clive Thompson, but I am here to talk to you a little bit about gold and silver and about the Venezuela war. And I am attorney Michael Ehline, and I am coming at you. Hold on a minute. Looks like there's a wasp or a hornet that went into the bedroom. Sweetie, there's a hornet or a wasp that came in here, so keep an eye out, okay? Yeah, it just flew in. So sorry about that. I am attorney Michael Ehline, and I'm coming at you from a balcony in El Salvador. Last night, I got a chance to check out the historic district in El Salvador with my family. And I didn't find out until, because I'm a light sleeper, I've got sciatica. So I woke up with some serious pain in my back again, unfortunately. I just want to make sure that you see that you can hear me. I want to make sure. Good. Okay, Lynn, good. And Lynn, I did talk to a friend of ours about trying to figure out a way to set up some kind of a donations channel for you to help you get back on your feet. But we'll talk about that another time. So I'm coming at you live from El Salvador. And I'm in Grand Centro, I think it's called, or I can't even remember right now. It's so early. So for me, it's 6:58. For you guys, it's probably like, I don't know. Anyways, yeah, so just really quick. Lynn, I talked to Reluctant Prophet, and I'm sure there's a way we can figure something out. Now, there's going to be quite a bit of noise here because it's rush hour. Even though it's a Saturday, it's noisy, but I'll show you. So here I am in El Salvador, San Salvador. Beautiful day again, as usual. Yeah, I know it is, Lynn. Hey, look, when I became a lawyer with no undergrad or law degree, and I didn't have a lot of financial support, so I slept on park benches. I'd sold my limousine business, and I found a way to make it happen. And since then, I've recovered hundreds of millions of dollars from my clients in verdicts and settlements. So use that as an inspirational story for you. But I did have friends, and you have friends, and people care about you, so I don't want you to worry too much. Focus on the journey, not the destination. I mean, you will focus on the destination, but focus on baby steps of the journey, right? Because when you reach the destination, it's going to be anticlimactic. So don't think that just because you reach the goal means that's the end, because my philosophy and yours should be stay hungry. I mean, anybody who is a natural law philosopher like you and myself believe in the concept of a merit-based society where the government doesn't act as a nanny. And so because of that, old systems tend to fall out of favor because of the bell curve. And we can talk about the bell curve in another video. But right now, this is a breaking story. We have war in Venezuela. War in Venezuela. It appears as though President Trump has attacked Venezuela. I'm going to go ahead and just show you some video really quick.
Look at that! Egg, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Those are
Bomb
obviously
egg. How crazy.
American tourists,
Fly there,
obviously.
fly there. Look at that! They exploded all that over there loudly. You're not exploding.
Woo! Man, precision bombing.
Whoa, the fiat in this caught fire.
Oh, man.
I mean, that's just
How crazy.
We got home on time.
Oh, look at that.
Wow. I mean, that is just devastating. You get the idea.
Look at that!
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So yeah, and then we have that. So before I start the video, I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction about what I'm going to talk about today, about the war in Venezuela, in particular, how I feel it's going to affect gold and silver prices, because it's going to be a big deal. And I have a lot of friends who are Venezuelans, obviously Central America, South America. I love the people down here. I'm in El Salvador right now. I just think that they're a higher quality of people. Unfortunately, they've been ravaged by communist and Marxist governments that, unfortunately, a particular political party in our country wants to force upon our children with their globalist control of our public education system. We know that Larry Fink has formed an alliance with the National Education Association, vis-a-vis the World Economic Forum. And just like the Rockefellers who brought the public education system to our country, these wealthy people, globalists, want to control the thoughts and minds of everyone. And they've done a great job with their almost 90% or more control of the news media and the public school system. And that's why we homeschool our kids. We don't allow them to be brainwashed, and we'll never send our kids to a Marxist-run university to further the damage that the state has already caused K through 12. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. So really quickly, before I get into why do I have a picture of Barry Soetoro on my screen? Well, we're going to get into that in a minute, but it has to do with the fact that finally Barry Soetoro and Donald Trump both agree on something. And I'll share that for you after I talk about the introduction of the video. All right, so we just saw some dramatic footage of the Venezuelan explosions from a news clip from Reuters. So again, I am attorney Michael Ehline. I'm a natural law attorney, and I'm coming to you today from beautiful El Salvador, a beacon of freedom in Central America under President Bukele's leadership. Today, we're diving into the breaking news that the U.S. strikes on Venezuela that apparently captured President Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores. And this video isn't just about geopolitics. It's a lawful reckoning about tyranny with massive ripples for the globalists, the BRICS nations like China. I believe it's really a proxy war against China because China uses Venezuela as a hub to flood our country with drugs. And of course, we know that blue cities love to take care of all these homeless people on drugs. They create nonprofit organizations to end homelessness and give out free needles, which we know isn't going to end anything, right? Because now people are getting rich off it. Why would they have any want to end it? So they were happy, probably, because they're making more money if you flood the country with fentanyl and keep people on drugs, keep them on welfare, keep them in their political power, right? Okay. So the BRICS nations are it's probably a CIA proxy war as well, because we know the CIA wants to keep the Federal Reserve fiat currency banking system in power, which obviously creates worthless paper based on a false promise of the government to make it right. We know that since the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank in 1913, the federal fiat currency dollar has lost well over 90% of its value. And we know that inflation is not caused by tariffs, contrary to what CNN wants you to think. Inflation is caused by an artificial increase of currency into our system. Now, I know that Mario over at Moneco64 has a dictionary definition that says it's an artificial increase of money, but I have to correct that dictionary definition because fiat currency isn't money. The only real money is gold and silver, and to a lesser degree copper, but the monetary metals are gold and silver. That's what we used for currency up until 1933, when President Roosevelt forced us to give most of our gold back and paid us $20, and then raised the price of gold and used it to help pay off war debt, leaving you hanging with very little. And if you would have been able to hold on to that same gold, you would be probably a multimillionaire by today's fiat currency standard. But I've talked about this in other videos, but I'm going to say it again. Back when fiat currency, back when gold was made illegal under Roosevelt, a $20 gold piece could have bought you a fine Italian suit, a fine pair of Italian shoes, and probably several fine, high quality like meals, in the $4,500 range. Well, modernly, that same $20 gold piece could buy you the same thing. Okay, just to explain how gold is a store of value, and it's not digital. So if quantum computing comes along, nobody can steal your gold passcode because you physically own it. And if the internet goes down, which we know that the last administration imported power grid systems that have backdoor entry points for the Chinese communists to shut down our electrical grid. So we know all that. You can look it up yourself. So why would you want to have digital currency knowing that, right? So let's get into how this is going to be a lawful reckoning against tyranny with massive ripples for the globalist BRICS nations, and especially the U.S. gold and silver markets. So I want you to buckle up. We're going to focus on how this shakes up precious metals and potentially is going to expose the paper market manipulations like LBMA, stuff like that, and how it will probably impact my travel plans since I'm down here in El Salvador and I need to get back home because I do have a law firm and I have staff. And, we know that under the Deming philosophy, that if the boss doesn't walk the floor, the workers don't work as hard. So, there's a lot of things that are going on. So first, the facts. Let me see if I have anybody else who's joined me. Lawrence Accountability was here for the 80s. You've seen this before. Yes. Well, so I know that unfortunately, the cop watcher community is so heavily influenced by Marxist-run news media that they don't even believe we need to protect our borders from foreign invasions anymore, a lot of them. And there wouldn't be any need for ICE to kick out all these illegals had the last administration kept Trump's executive order in place that provided that anybody who wants to come into our country needs to verify who they are so we know they're not a criminal or a drug dealer or a human trafficker. So he eliminated that executive order and then used U.S. aid to fund hundreds of non-governmental organizations and paid them essentially to help illegals flood into our country, which is in fact treason under the Constitution. It was an absolute foreign invasion. And a lot of these people ended up in Colorado. I believe it was Aurora. And they were Tren de Aragua gang members that Maduro released from prison. They were flooding the country with drugs, giving them to little kids and whatnot, taking over whole apartment complexes. And we know the Marxist-run news media here tried to cover it up. And a lot of people in like the police watching and pro-freedom communities that I'm involved in bought into the whole news media narrative. So I'm going to dispel all of this nonsense. Yeah, me too, Lawrence. I'm an inactive U.S. Marine, and I absolutely agree that the primary job of the federal government is to secure our borders from foreign invasion. Now, the other thing that Biden did when he brought in all these illegals, a lot of people think it was done by the auto pen because he obviously was suffering from dementia and didn't know what he was doing, is he gave illegal aliens what's called temporary protective status and issued hundreds of thousands of social security numbers to them and allowed them to collect benefits. And of course, CNN says illegal aliens can't collect benefits. Yeah, but they can if they were granted temporary protective status. And that's what CNN, PMSNBC, and all these anti-American news organizations were spinning. And a lot of people in the cop watcher community bought into it. And so my job as a lawyer and someone with over 20 years of experience practicing law, doing civil rights actions, tight handcuff police cases, police shooting cases, as well as personal injury law, constitutional law, having externed for the California Court of Appeal, 2nd District Division 4. I think I was the first person in the history of the Court of Appeal in California to be a judicial extern without going to a government subsidized law school. I became a lawyer on the law study program. So I didn't get exposed to all that leftist brainwashing, pro-Che Guevara, pro-communist brainwashing on the college campuses. So I was able to keep my natural law instincts alive. And so because of that, I'm in a strong position to talk to you about natural law, the common law evolution of our laws from England into the United States of America, lowercase u, and how that's going to work. So what we'll do is just simply get into, well, first of all, Was the war lawful? Well, from a natural law perspective, which I live and breathe, absolutely. Natural law is rooted in divine principles and human reason. It demands justice against tyrants who violate life, liberty, and property. Maduro's regime is a Marxist nightmare. Again, I have several friends who had their whole families disappeared down there, and they had no one backing them up. I mean, we had the United States under the last administration basically helping Maduro to a large degree, at least publicly. Now, privately, the CIA was probably doing things behind the scenes because of the BRICS currency system. But to appease his Marxist beta voters and illegal aliens who vote without IDs in non-voter ID states, and that absolutely did happen and does happen, he had to publicly not go against the Maduro regime, at least not harshly, not like Trump did in his first administration. And just for all you people who think I'm a Trumper this or Trumper that, whatever, I'm a libertarian. I don't believe that United States citizens should even have the direct ability to vote for the president, just like our Constitution says. It should be handled through the states and the legislatures like state senators. That was all changed later. But again, that's because I don't believe the federal government should really have that much power. It was set up with very, very limited powers. Washington, D.C., 10 miles square. That's it. And it was designed to protect our borders from foreign invasion and basically regulate disputes between the states by setting up a national court system using principles of stare decisis that were evolved from English common law. When there was a dispute that the states couldn't agree upon, then the court would decide things like that. So very limited powers. So don't think that I'm some tyrant because I don't believe in direct vote. I just don't support democracy, because democracy is where the majority rules. And often the majority is not the intelligent. And you want to have enlightened, intelligent people in a position to make those decisions who actually know what they're talking about. You don't want to have mob rules. We were set up as a republic where the chains of the Constitution were to bind the majority and the government with the chains of the Constitution. So individual rights like property rights and things like that could not be infringed upon. Benjamin Franklin said it best. He said a republic, strike that, a democracy is when two wolves and a sheep show up for lunch and decide what's on the menu. A democracy is where two wolves and a well-armed sheep shows up to contest the vote. Do you understand the difference between a republic and a democracy? Demos comes from the Greek word mob, mobocracy. So now that we've got that out of the way, this is the basically, explosions rocked military bases like Fuerte Tiuna with smoke plumes visible for miles. I showed you that video earlier. President Trump announced on Truth Social that Maduro, that Marxist thug, and he is a Marxist thug. Maduro is a piece of shit, and I'm glad that he's gone, was captured and flown out of the country for trial on drug charges. This is the most direct action in Latin America since Panama in 1989. Now, is this war lawful? And here we'll take a look at, well, first of all, before we get into the next, I'm gonna do some video sharing with you. Before we get into the next video on this, I just want to share with you why is it that Barack Obama and Donald Trump can finally agree on something? Well, because they do. Here, let Barry Soetoro tell you from his own mouth why they agree.
We're going to punish our enemies and we're going to reward our friends.
There you go. Because Barack Obama was a big proponent in punishing your enemies and rewarding your friends. But the difference is that Barack Obama wanted to punish his political enemies. He used tools like the IRS and Lois Lerner, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, government employees, all leftists, to shut down the political opposition at home. Now, modernly, the difference would be under Trump is he's trying to punish our economic enemies and enemies who are engaged in a drug war against the United States. And so that would be the main difference. Of course, we all know it's probably more about the BRICS currency system, right? So anyways, here's the leftist version of what's going on. It's Wikipedia, so you can take it or leave it, but it talks about it. I'll include these links in the description of the video. I've got to go back and paste them all in. I didn't have a lot of time. I got up and I saw this and I said, you know, I want to share with my audience what's going on, because we need to put some controls on this, because what's happening, you're going to hear from all these people, oh, Trump this, Trump that, he's so terrible, he attacked these wonderful people in Venezuela. I mean, Maduro and the guy before him, these people are trash. And the way that they treated their citizens, and my friends who live there, I mean, lost pretty much all their wealth, like you do anytime you have a Marxist representative in power, right? Because they want to concentrate all the wealth and power with their friends, right? Like George Soros or Bill Gates, World Economic Forum, because we're just the little people to them. They want to help their friends like Epstein Island, right? You know, I can't wait till they release the Epstein tapes when you find out that big finance and most of Congress, probably both parties, were hanging out at Epstein Island. A lot of people think it was a Mossad operation. Hey, Evan Bird, good seeing you, man. Yeah, man. So let's get into the, so the U.S. launched strikes on Venezuela, and Trump says Maduro was captured, which is amazing. And then here's some more video that I'm going to show you. Hopefully it'll play without advertisements. If they try to play advertisements, I'm going to stop it. Here we go.
Amor. Ay, no. Mira eso. Mira eso.
All right, so that wasn't much, but you get an idea. Let me really quickly, just trying to clear out my screen a little bit. I'm still kind of getting used to the software, guys, so bear with me. But the U.S., well, this was an earlier story where the whereabouts of Maduro were unknown, but now apparently we have confirmation that he was captured, which is wonderful, because I think the guy, I hate Maduro. As you guys know, I am a fervent anti-communist, anti-Marxist. So this is really good news for us. We've got some live stuff coming in.
Watch here what the reaction is from our adversaries, certainly from Russia, from Iran, from others who go in and out of there with oil. We've already got that tanker that the United States was pursuing, and that is something that the world will have to brace itself for as well.
All right, ABC's Martha Raddatz, thanks so much. Again, President Trump confirming this moments ago that the U.S. launched large-scale strikes against Venezuela, and that President Maduro and his wife have been captured and they've been flown out of the country. We're going to go ahead and return you to your regular programming. Actually, before we do that, let's get back to Selena Wang from West Palm Beach with more information, I think, from the White House.
We're actually learning a little bit more. The president is giving a brief interview to the New York Times where he celebrated the success of the mission to capture Maduro, saying, quote, a lot of good planning and a lot of great troops and people. He went on to say it was a brilliant operation, actually. And
you know, I'm sure it was. I mean, we still have command left over from the last wars that we fought. And they've really mastered how to take down dictators. So this will be really interesting how this goes down. So in any event, again, President Trump announced that Maduro, the Marxist thug, is going to be brought to trial on drug charges. And yes, from a natural law perspective, it is a lawful war. Maduro's regime is a Marxist regime. So this is what happens with Marxists. I'll just say it, if you didn't hear me say this before, hyperinflation, starvation, and brutal suppression is the goal of every Marxist dictator. And the very first thing they do is abolish the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Now, the left in the United States calls them common sense gun laws, but there's no such thing as a common sense gun law. All it does is help criminals and not you. And we can talk about that in another show. What makes sense is to homeschool your kids and teach them firearm safety, the history of this country, and the sacred right of the people to keep and bear arms for the defense of themselves and the defense of their country. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Now, again, I have friends, a lot of people, a lot of families down there who were unalived by Maduro and his goons in cold blood. So I have no sympathy for the Marxist government of Venezuela. He was engaged in extrajudicial killings, torture in prisons like El Helicoide, and his documented horror is unbelievable documented horror. Look, I'm going to just read you a little bit about what happened there. Of course, Maduro's saying it's an attempt to impose a colonial war. That's what all the critical race theory DEI people call it when we try to protect our citizens from foreign invasion. But yeah, it's pretty bad. Cuba, of course, has declared that Cuba denounces this, and of course we know who Cubans and a certain political party in this country are aligned since Obama. Colombia, of course, expresses deep concern about the attacks, saying that unilateral military action can worsen the situation in the region, putting the civilian population at risk. Right, like Maduro didn't put his population at risk, like people fleeing from Venezuela that went into Colombia weren't placed at risk. Come on. Of course, the Communist Party of India is against it. Turkey, of course, another BRICS nation, condemned it. Honduras, the Libre Party, another leftist party, all condemn it. Yeah. So, anyways, there's not a whole lot on the history on that video, but you get the idea. Now, the U.S. government has framed this as a law enforcement action against narco-terrorism, tying it to indictments from 2020, and in that particular case, hopefully I can get this. Hold on one second, guys. Let me get it on my screen for you. Hopefully you can see that. The U.S., okay, so they're saying that he's been captured and flown out of the country. Let's
to an end before it escalates. So that's an optimistic look at where we are this morning. But given that Maduro's out, the regime will essentially fall. The U.S. has hit ports, they've hit barracks, they've hit airfields, they've hit communication sites. So all of this means that the Maduro regime has essentially been brought down, and so this could be it in terms of what we're going to see out of.
Yeah. It's over. I mean, he's done. There's probably going to be some kind of a guerrilla war or something like that now. What do you guys think? So critics whine about no congressional declaration, but this is targeted enforcement, not a full invasion. Maduro's capture does uphold the law of nations based on natural law. Now, again, this move is going to infuriate the globalists, whose unelected elites are pushing their one world government agenda through outfits like the United Nations, the World Economic Forum. And why? It derails their repopulation scheme. Look, Venezuela under Maduro hemorrhaged over 7.7 million refugees since 2014, flooding neighboring countries and the U.S. border. And I'll show you a citation, just so you don't think I'm making this up. The strategic costs of the U.S. strikes against Venezuela, and this is Stimson.org. So let's get into it. Yeah, there's ongoing strikes inside Venezuela. Regime change. There's been growing discussion that the goal of the United States is not actually curtailing the drug trade, but instead deposing Maduro. Well, guess what, guys? Why is that a bad thing? Maduro was a piece of shit. He is an absolute terrorist. He's an evil Marxist communist. And I am a fervent anti-communist, and I believe that Marxism and communism should be illegal in the United States. because the stated goal of communism is the destruction of laissez-faire capitalism and free markets. So why would we want to allow a religion or a political system that is against freedom and liberty and natural law? Isn't that just the stupidest thing you've ever heard of? Yes, okay, so Ovenburn, we're going to get into mining stocks as well. It's going to be wild, man. This is going to be absolutely wild. I think that Monday is going to be a big day trader day. I'm going to try to put in as many hours as I can today when I get off of this program, so I can go in there and get all my puts and my shorts and everything lined up, do some market research, do some historical research. I wish that Maneko64 would cover this. I did see his regular morning video today from the UK, but it was like pre-recorded, so he probably didn't cover this. But hopefully my discussion on gold and silver is going to be helpful to my audience. So again, globalists thrive on chaos. They want to replace the native populations with people from low IQ countries, sub-Saharan African countries where they have extremely low IQs, get them on government assistance to ensure the survival of their political party and their own personal interests. But that's not what America is about. So they have narratives like Agenda 2030's migration goals, and I'll show you what that is right now. So the 2030 agenda, unfortunately, most of this stuff is like left-wing nonsense, but you can see what they do. They offer people free things, and then the government uses non-governmental organizations to flood their countries with illegal aliens, promising them free housing, free health care, welfare checks, temporary protective status, and that's what they do. And of course, they brainwash their population with government control of their media, like BBC, very similar to NPR, where the government comes in and subsidizes the media outlet. I think 99% or even 100% of the editorial staff and people who run NPR are far leftists, Marxists, for lack of a better word, in my opinion. And there's actually proof of that if you want to look it up for yourself. They believe in silencing their opposition and punishing their enemies and rewarding their friends. And so the local populace, of course, especially in the UK, they bought into this, a lot of them. They're finally starting to wake up that they're being replaced with people who hate them and want to change their country into basically a jihadist caliphate, and they're getting upset. And it's kind of blowing up in their face. They use climate change. They use, of course, the left calls it climate denialism and all this stuff as an excuse while they help communist China and don't put any smog restrictions on China and allow all that smog to just go across the ocean to your country. So it's obviously ridiculous what they're doing. Of course, I support a clean environment, but not at the expense of you and your family. What do you guys think? Yes, you do, Lynn. You need them. So let's get into a little bit more now. So ousting Maduro stabilizes Venezuela, stems the exodus, and empowers locals to rebuild. I already have friends in the United States and Colombia who are already moving back to Venezuela. Now, sure, there's going to be a lot of communists and people who tried to unalive the population, who supported the Marxists, who are going to be fleeing, but they can go to one of the Chinese communist satellite countries like, I don't know, Nicaragua, if that's what they want to do, right? So, but basically, BRICS countries in Venezuela, they all are connected by red lines to Russia, China, and Iran, right? And so that's the BRICS currency system. And again, I think the BRICS currency system is what our Constitution requires. So I have nothing against gold and silver being our primary source of currency. The problem is we have a private, secretly run Federal Reserve banking system that is no more federal than Federal Express, printing money, paying off all their banker buddies, like Epstein Island type people, allowing that money to be loaned back to you at interest that they gave to the banks at no interest. And it's not money, it's currency, it's Federal Reserve notes. Sometimes I'll make a mistake and call it money, but it's not. It's backed by nothing other than the promise of a politician. So there you go. So this really hurts the BRIC nations bad. the BRICS nations, BRICS. Venezuela isn't in BRICS, but Brazil, because Brazil vetoed them twice. So that, but still, they're part of that BRICS alliance. And you can see here that Maduro pins Venezuela's BRICS snub on the rogue Brazilian diplomat. So obviously, China wants to get their hands on the oil, gold, and silver that Venezuela has, but Brazil didn't like it, so they vetoed it. So that, in a nutshell, that's what happened. And yes, I know that Trump wants to get his hands on Venezuela's gold and silver too. The problem is when we invade countries, we don't take their gold and silver and their resources, and the American people have to pay for it. And so that's been the history. That's what happened with Iraq. Look at what we did in Afghanistan. We're still sending the Taliban checks, even under Trump, to keep them, I guess, from attacking us or something. I don't know, but it's much like the fall of Rome. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. All right, so it's definitely their proxy playground, China's proxy playground. And Russia and China poured billions into Venezuelan oil, propping up Maduro with loans and military aid. Iran ships fuel there, dodging U.S. sanctions. And then, of course, when the communists took over in Brazil, they nationalized their oil, and they kicked out all the U.S. companies that they had contracts with. So obviously it hurt the United States significantly as well. And that's what happened. So it'll fracture, as BRICS probably will fracture, as members like India and Brazil distance themselves from Maduro's fallout. This could spark regional backlash, but long-term it isolates the autocrats of this world. And that's a good thing. I'm not saying that everything that the United States does is good, but when it comes to enforcement of the Monroe Doctrine and keeping our borders safe, there is precedent, historical precedent, that natural law does support us getting rid of someone who is assisting in a treasonous border invasion of our country. Now, the meat, how does this jolt the U.S. gold and silver markets? This is the big one. This is why my gold and silver stackers should tune in now. Make sure to share this with your friends who are in the gold and silver sphere, because this is the important part. So how does this jolt the U.S. gold and silver markets? Well, geopolitical shocks like this are rocket fuel for gold in particular, and other precious metals, because they're safe havens in uncertainty. The problem is markets are going to hedge because they know that we have such overwhelming force that there's probably not going to be that much uncertainty at the end of the day. Notice how Trump launched the attack over the weekend when the markets were closed. However, I do have an enormous amount of investments in VIX and FAS, which are leveraged trades against the market. So if they go up, I'm going to be in a good position to get out of that, to escape that market at a high, and then wait until there's a dip in gold and silver miners and get into that. So it might be a good time to not buy gold and silver right away, because I believe it's going to go through the roof on Monday. But in any event, nothing I say should be construed as financial or legal advice. Now, gold's already at record highs, over $4,300 an ounce, up 64% in 2025. And silver's exploded 147% to around 70 an ounce, give or take. I think right now it's around 72.30 or something an ounce. Now, come Monday, January 5th, expect a gap up, because COMEX could hit the market with a 4,380 ounce and gold and a silver of 74 to 78 an ounce. Why? Because Venezuela's chaos adds risk to premium. Oil supply fears, regional instability will drive investors into metals. Platinum and palladium may tag along. They tend to. Now, it used to be that platinum was worth more than gold. So platinum is definitely a play that I've made, and I've done quite well with platinum investments. Of course, all of my gold is stored off-site in cold storage, so don't try to home invade me, guys, because if you do, you're going to leave in a body bag anyways, because I am a Second Amendment rights attorney, and I teach a CQB course. So if you want to take the challenge, it's going to be a rough one for you. You're going to end up in cold storage. Now, Venezuela chaos adds risk to all this, and oil supply. So if you're invested in oil, in energy stocks, you're probably going to be looking good on Monday as well. Now, but here's the killer. This hurts the paper market manipulation. So let's talk a little bit about the paper market manipulation, the futures markets. These are the people who have artificially, in my estimation, kept silver prices low. So they basically sell, like the LBMA, for example. They will have some gold in storage, but then they'll lease that same gold to someone else. That's called hypothecation. And then they'll lease the same gold again, called rehypothecation, to someone else. So they might have one piece of gold that's leased to thousands of different people. And so when these people want to call in their trade and get the gold, they can't. And so because of that, there's been a lot of manipulation to try to keep people from getting their hands on that gold. And that's why I don't invest in GLD or SLV, the BlackRock stuff, because they use hypothecation and rehypothecation. I invest in stocks like PSLV, physical silver, right? Or physical, PSYH, Fizz. God, I don't have the ticker, but that's the one for gold, and it's physical gold. So I'll invest in things that give me physical access or mining companies. But lately, I've shifted my miner investments only to mining companies where the CEO holds significant shares of their own stock. So I'm kind of getting out of PAS, PAAS, even though it's the largest silver miner. The CEO has, I think, less than 5%, maybe a little more than 5% of actual shares. So that tells me they don't have that much faith in their own company, and that scares me. So little information about what I do, okay? Now, a real crisis like this is going to spike physical demand, and it's going to expose the fraud of these paper markets. And what they do is these paper contracts have suppressed physical prices for years through naked shorts and endless derivatives. A real crisis like this spikes that physical demand and exposes their fraud, and spot prices are going to soar. So the banks are going to scramble, and we've already seen the Federal Reserve Bank has dumped billions of dollars over the last few weeks into the repo markets to try to prop them up, all their friends in the banking industry, because they know the economy is going to crash. And many experts believe that's what the COVID thing was really about. It was about saving the banks under the pretext of a mass public danger, right? And of course, it helped their friends in the pharmaceutical industry. That's what some people say. I mean, I can't say that other than as an opinion reported for others by others, because I could risk losing my channel. That's how much control these guys have. So in any event, Venezuela's oil ties make it worse because besides the fact that the spot prices are going to soar for gold and the manipulation is going to crumble, the paper market manipulation is going to crumble as holders demand physical delivery, and that's the problem. These guys don't have enough, from what we understand. They may, but it doesn't sound like it, to make these deliveries. So because of that, Venezuela's oil ties are going to make it even worse because BRICS hoards gold. And U.S. action is going to flip the script, boosting real asset values. So I'm stacking physical now. And Monday, I think, is going to be your wake-up call. Look, I'm never always right. I mean, found out I was wrong once, but then later on I found out that I was right. Now, finally, commercial flights. This is a big one. So I'm down with my family in her home country on a family emergency. And before we came, there were already commercial flight warnings. So I'm hoping we can get out. But yeah, I'm here in El Salvador, and this hits close. The FAA banned all U.S. flights over Venezuela already due to ongoing military activity. The airspace is a ghost town there. All Venezuela commercial ops have been canceled. Reroutes have been adding hours to the regional flights. From San Salvador, connections to the U.S. or South America could delay. I don't know about the U.S. yet. Caracas airspace is restricted too. So if you're traveling, check your updates because this could ripple to Central American hubs and maybe to the U.S. So in closing, Venezuela's liberation, in my estimation, is a win for natural law. It sets back the globalists and the BRICS bullies, and it's a boon for gold and silver holders. It exposes the paper Ponzi scheme and restores justice. But stay vigilant, stack wisely, and remember, freedom isn't free. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and hit the reminder bell too. A lot of guys aren't getting a lot of people aren't getting my notifications. So that notification bell is really important. There's a little bell on my videos. You hit it and it says notifications, and set it for on so you can get these notifications. In my estimation, I'm probably one of the only natural law attorneys on YouTube where I just call it like I see it. And again, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. If anything, I would consider myself to be a libertarian. I'm an anti-federalist like Thomas Jefferson. And I try to present my facts based on what they are, and my history based on the true history, not the revisionist history taught in the Marxist-run public schools and university system in the United States, which was co-opted first by the KGB and then taken over by the Confucian societies and lots of money from the communist Chinese, because that's what they do. Because China has an interest in keeping Americans stupid and brainwashed. And so paying off politicians is their play. And that started, well, it didn't start, but it came to light under the Clinton administration, when the Clintons were bringing in suitcases full of money, Federal Reserve notes, with help from General Charlie Tree of the People's Liberation Army. And ultimately, Bill Clinton turned over control of a naval base, Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station in Long Beach. And a lot of other concessions were given to China under the Clinton administration, which is never going to be covered in CNN or PMSNBC, state-run media. So, again, this is going to be a boon for gold and silver holders. And from El Salvador, I just wanted to tell you guys, I'm going to answer a couple of questions, and then we'll go ahead and call it a day on this show. And yeah, Lynn, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Second Amendment. Hey, Greg Manager, good seeing you, man. And yeah, I think mining stocks, Oven Burns says he thinks mining stocks are going to pull much higher. I think this sets up cryptocurrency and gold and silver for a huge boost. But the question is, are you going to sell? Because we know that with all this fiat currency and quantitative easing, look, I told you guys earlier, a $20 gold piece could have bought you a fine Italian suit, a fine pair of Italian shoes, several meals at a fine restaurant like Mastro's back in 1933, when Roosevelt outlawed gold for most people. And that same $20 piece of gold could buy you the same thing. But a $20 Federal Reserve note, you're lucky if you can get a Happy Meal at McDonald's for that, right? And a drink and all that stuff, maybe some extra fries. So that is caused by inflation, because fiat currency is not money. And so they have to print more and more money. And then a certain political party in this country will say, if you vote for me, I'll give you a minimum wage pay increase. Well, what does that do? That causes the price of everything to go up. That causes what's called inflation, because nobody can afford to pay $20 an hour for an entry-level burger flipping job. And of course, we know that In-N-Out already closed one of its stores in Oakland because of Gavin Newsom's scheme to get more votes from uneducated voters. And we know that Chevron just left the state of California. We know that X just left the state of California. We know that hundreds of businesses have fled California. My family had to flee California. We're not going to pay for a Marxist-controlled state that wants to ban our right to protect our families from the very people that our government has flooded our country with illegally. So naturally, that's what's really happening. But if you have enough uneducated people who went to a public school or university system, that's the end game. A bunch of what they call useless idiots who vote for their own destruction. So yes, it's a real problem. Now, Oven Burns says, keep in mind the 100-year cycle is coming up since the market crash in 1929. Big events happen every 100 years. You're right, Oven Burn. Bravo for that comment, by the way. And then, of course, Lawrence Accountability says, Marxist thug or not, we can't be doing this. Well, I mean, there's constitutional authority for what happened here, and under natural law, a tyrant like that who has declared war on the American people by flooding our country with illegal drugs and illegal aliens needs to be stopped. So I would say that we can be doing this in this particular situation. Now the problem is, what are we going to do once we pull out? Because we saw what happened with the Taliban. We're paying off the very people that attacked us, allegedly, if you believe that we were attacked by the Islamists. A lot of people think that it was a CIA Mossad operation, but that's, again, another topic for another day. But no, I appreciate what you're saying, Lawrence, and I would definitely love to have you on the show and share your views on this, but based on my understanding of natural law and the federal government's primary job to protect our borders from foreign invasion, he's stopped a foreign invasion. Now, the problem is, again, what are we going to do when we pull out, Lawrence? Are we going to install a proxy government? Because if we do, we're going to end up right back here again, because the CIA has a history of doing this. And so I am scared about that. I mean, I'm biting my nails, because if we install a fake government that is not truly elected by the people of Venezuela, we're in real trouble. Now, the upside is most Venezuelans I know who didn't have their families unalived by the Marxists are going to vote for a conservative like a Bukele. And so I have hope that if free and fair elections are held without voting machines, because that's just going to allow communist China to use their friends in these digital voting machine industries to manipulate the elections, because that's what they do. So if we have a paper vote and we allow a free and fair election, or if Venezuela allows a free and fair election, if they get somebody like the French guy after World War II, de Gaulle, who just comes in and says, screw you, U.S., you're done. That would be a great thing. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. So we could turn what could be a potential lemon into lemonade by allowing a popular uprising. And again, the problem is the people of Venezuela had their firearms confiscated, so they had no way to really form any kind of opposition. Like Mao Zedong said, all power flows from the barrel of a gun, and that's what Marxists and totalitarians do. They disarm their population. They say it's a common sense gun law or whatever, but it's really designed to make sure that you can't fight back against tyrannical government. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree with that as well. So let's go ahead and, hey, this is a public service. Now, this is a public service. That's where I do agree. We could have declared war, but no, we have what's called the War Powers Act, which allows the President of the United States, under our current statutory system, to engage in what's called a police action for up to 90 days. And now, once we show all the proof, right, of all the drug labs, because now we're going to be able to have access to all this stuff, and we also have defectors in the government of Venezuela come forward, even the Marxist Democrats are going to vote to extend the War Powers Act. Mark my words, it's going to be a real problem. But ultimately, this is a public service, and well, you know what? I hope it doesn't. This is a public service, says this is all about propping up the U.S. dollar. I hope it doesn't prop up the U.S. dollar, because we need to get rid of the Federal Reserve banking system and return America back to basically a BRICS system of gold and silver backed currency. So I'm with you there, brother, 1,000,000%. Look, I'm not here to say that Trump is a great guy. I'm much happier with him in office than I am with Sleepy Joe, because at least he takes an active interest in defending American borders and not using your tax dollars with NGOs to flood the country with people who are not good for this country. We have a legal immigration system, and that's what we should follow. And people who want to come into this country should pass a test and prove that they're not a threat to our way of life, and learn about our common law, natural law rights history before they come into our country and vote for someone like this guy in New York. I mean, even leftists who voted for him, movie stars and whatnot, they're all fleeing from New York because they realize, oh my God, this guy is even going to attack my savings account. And the same thing is going to happen in New York that's happening in California. You tax the shit out of people who actually support the economy by providing jobs, tell people that they're exploiting workers, as the very friends of people like Newsom and this Mangami guy or whatever over at the World Economic Forum are trying to replace them with artificial intelligence and humanoid robots. So these people are all just useful idiots voting for their own demise. And let me see here. So now, Nurse D says Venezuela already has elected their president in 2024, and she's been waiting to take the seat. Well, see, there you go. Great comment. That's what I'm talking about. And you're right. But again, we know that Maduro tried to use electronic voting machines, and he threw away all the paper ballots. And she overwhelmingly won that election. I mean, who wants to live? Look, when you have the ability to come up to El Salvador and you're in Venezuela and you see how this country has changed, and again, I'm going to just show you what I'm seeing. I mean, it is just amazing. Bukele saved this country. Bukele saved this country from the very criminals that the Biden administration was importing into our country. Now, What's the Matter You says that he thinks that our government wanted all those illegals here to support the prison industrial complex. And I have no argument against that, but there's also the component that the blue states created sanctuary cities. All right, now here's how the Democrats took control of California. California said, we're not going to enforce immigration laws. We're not going to help ICE. We're not going to help Department of Homeland Security. If you come into our state, if you come into a sanctuary city and you're in jail, we're not going to assist them in taking you back to your home country. And so what that did is it flooded Los Angeles, for example, with illegal aliens. And that allowed the United States Census to count them in the census count. And that created new Democrat voting districts for Los Angeles. And by most estimates of experts who don't work for CNN, if all the illegal aliens were forced to leave LA and California, California would once again be a red state. So it's not just the prison industrial complex. They're using illegal aliens to gain political power without even having to cast a vote. And they're doing the same thing. The World Economic Forum is behind this, along with the United Nations. And they're doing this to displace your vote with voting districts. So that's a fact. And if illegal aliens weren't counted in the census, the whole country would be red. So that's the way it works. So let's see here. I can't look. So Oven Burns says, I have family who are not even around anymore because of the shots. Well, I can't even get into that because I was already suspended for 90 days. And we know that YouTube doesn't allow you to say anything negative about the shots. So you got to be careful. So be very, very careful if you want to keep your channel, guys. If you say anything that goes against the World Economic Forum, National Health Organization narrative, you will have your channel banned for sure. So does anybody have any other questions for me? And Nurse D, again, great comment. And that's 1,000,000% right on the money. Venezuela already has elected their president in 2024, and she's been waiting to take the seat. Everybody give me a bunch of ones for her comment. That was absolutely on the money. Now, Nurse D also says that Trump is going to follow Bukele's lead and clean up our country. Be prepared for CCOTs being built, or maybe he's going to use Gitmo since he added thousands of beds there last term. Well, maybe, how about we release people who are accused of being tax protesters, nonviolent offenders? How about we abolish the Federal Reserve banking system and we actually follow what the Constitution says and empty out these prisons? We already have plenty of room for these illegals and criminals that have been propped up in blue states as superheroes, building statues to them and memorials, and maybe just put violent offenders in prison and people who are put in prison on nonviolent gun laws. Why is it that someone who's a nonviolent offender who served their time in jail, accused, charged, or convicted of a felony, can't have their Second Amendment rights restored? I mean, once we empty out the prisons of what I consider to be political prisoners, we'll have plenty of room for the violent offenders. There probably won't be that many prisons. I mean, America has a prison industrial complex that's off the chain. Yeah, it's terrible. So, oh, absolutely, Nursty. There's so many people being held unjustly in our prison system. And you guys know that I've done a lot of criminal defense and the appellate side. And luckily, with the help of co-counsel, we've been able to be successful in many habeas motions, petitions, to get these people out of prison. People who are in prison for life or for 30 or 40 years, which is basically life. So I'm with you guys. But again, I'm not here to try to argue or try to say that you're wrong, but I am a natural law rights attorney, and I really do know my history, and I am a constitutionalist. And so there are so many things wrong with this country. But in this particular case, there is authority for the United States president to protect our borders. And there's overwhelming evidence that China and the BRICS nations have been using Venezuela as a hub. And many of you have seen the CNN video. How is that poor fishing boat loaded with drugs going to, it doesn't have enough fuel to get to the US shores. That's how stupid these newscasters are. Because those drug boats don't go to the United States. They go to island chains all along the way and refuel, and they load their stuff on other boats, submarines, all the way through Cuba, and then they come to the United States. So don't believe anything you hear on the communist news network, CNN, PMSNBC, CBS, NPR. It's all far left Marxist propaganda. So there might be oven burn, there might be martial law. But yeah, and then Lynn Davidson takes it a step further. No one should be in prison unless they committed a crime. There has to be a victim, a corpus delicti. That's right, dude. That's actually not electi, it's delecti, DELECTI. But I'm with you, brother, and I'm here to help in any way I can, because I know you guys aren't all lawyers. I know you're not all legal historians. I know a lot of you got a lot of your information from like the Freeman of Montana or Liz Meredith or these other people who I think are patriots, but they just don't really understand the history from the Confirmatio Confirmatum, from the Magna Carta, from the Articles of Confederation, from the unanimous declaration between the states, and how natural law was adapted by our country because it was deemed to be an enlightened, reasonable form of governance. And so, okay, Lynn, you got it. All right. So Lynn says it was just a spell check issue. Hey, delete laws. Good seeing you, man. Hey, dude, it is 7:59 in El Salvador, and I'm a little worried that I'm not going to be able to. Everybody, welcome my good friend Chile de Castro. He's another person who was falsely imprisoned, but he had the resources because of help from YouTubers like you to be able to afford one of the best appellate lawyers in Nevada. And as you guys know, I tried to help him run his channel. Obviously, could not run his channel anywhere near as good as he could. And, we're not 100% aligned on everything either. So a lot of his audience probably hated my guts. But we are aligned on the things that count, and that is forming parallel systems. I'm a big advocate of homeschooling, getting your kids out of the Marxist-run education system. And I would visit Chile while he was locked up, and I just was so ashamed of my country. It literally brought tears to my eyes, what happened to him. So if Chile's still around, Chile, I am trying to organize a fundraiser to help out Lynn Davidson. Lynn, you just need to get some kind of a GoFundMe or some way to receive the money or the Federal Reserve notes. And we will find a way. I also was talking with some other influencers the other day, and I think that there's a way we can help you out. I would love to. Look, so Lynn is a disabled individual, patriot, a true American, and always has great comments. And I believe in, again, forming parallel systems. You don't need welfare from the government. When the government says, I'm here to help, that's when you run. What you do is you form parallel systems with people that you care about, and you just help people. And that's what we do as freeborn Americans. And I appreciate you too, Chile. And I'm so glad that you're doing well. It was really great seeing you the other day. I don't know if you guys can notice, but if you look at my face, I've lost 30 pounds of body fat. zero alcohol, pure carnivore diet, but with some vegetables, and lots of water, creatine, carnitine to supplement, and boron and a bunch of other supplements. But I'm back into my bodybuilding routine. I used to be heavily involved in bodybuilding. Unfortunately, I can't do judo or wrestling or Muay Thai or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu other than my katagames because I'm suffering from really bad sciatica. But yeah, delete laws, you would be instrumental in helping Lynn. But Lynn just has to find a way to be able to receive the funds. But I want to have Lynn on as a guest. The problem is I don't even think Lynn can afford a camera to get live. But we're going to work with our friends to try to get Lynn set up, at least something, right? A hand up, not a hand down. And so that's my goal in 2026. So if anybody wants to reach out to me or Chili, maybe we can start the process. Maybe, right? And Reluctant Prophet as well. Reluctant Prophet has already been helping Lynn. And as you guys know, Reluctant Prophet's not a rich man. So I do want to encourage you guys to like and subscribe to Chili DeCastro's channel, Delete Laws, as well as Reluctant Prophet. Great guy, super guy. And, well, Lynn says, no, I can't go live. Well, look, if we could get you set up with even if it's a hand-me-down computer with like what I'm using with a little, because I don't have my main setup with me. I'm using a cheap little microphone, and I'm on a balcony in El Salvador. So, Chili, if you're around, dude, check it out. Look at where I am in El Salvador. I mean, isn't it just gorgeous? So there you go. I mean, living, here it's a family emergency, so it's unfortunate that I'm down here under dire circumstances. But still, I've been able to really learn about the Salvadorian people. I've been all over El Salvador into the poor man's districts to see how the people really live. Because when you come to like San Salvador, you're not really you're seeing like their version of Beverly Hills. And so I like to go to like La Libertad, and I like to go, well, I'd still like El Tunco, even though it's mainly Americanos there. But I just like being around the regular Salvadorian people. I grew up in construction, and I worked with all the Mexicans, the manual laborers, Guatemalans. And these guys, one family set me up in their backyard in a tent and tried to marry me off to their daughter. And I was, I think, 17, working a full-time job as a painter's apprentice and going to school at night. And so I realized these people are really good people, but they've been destroyed by their governments. Like Mexico had the PRI party, that totalitarian party. Now they have some lady who doesn't even have a Hispanic last name running their country, and she's preaching diversity, equity, and inclusion, hatred of white people. The same thing they're teaching in our public schools. And all roads lead back to the World Economic Forum. All roads lead back to these guys. These guys are trying to replace the population with people and trying to turn the population against the natives. And you see that happening in the United Kingdom right now. We don't need that for this country. We need to teach brotherly love and forming parallel systems where we help people like Lynn Davidson. So I don't know how it works, but I know, Lynn, that you can set up, like, I don't know if it's a GoFundMe necessarily, but like a wallet or something where people can send you donations directly. And that's what I like to do. As a lawyer in particular, I don't want to have anything to do with holding money or Federal Reserve notes for other people. I want to be able to help people help themselves by simply saying, please help my friend Lynn Davidson. And that's what we do. That's what I do at Team MPE. Everybody's got their own way. Obviously, if it's a big channel, Lynn, I would consider trying to form an alliance with someone like Chili and offer him a share of the proceeds, because the guy is a bombshell and he could probably get you a lot more donations than me. So when someone does a fundraiser for you, I believe that they're entitled to receive a portion of whatever funds they raise for the time that they put into it. But that's going to be a decision that you would have to make with one of these bigger influencers. For me, I don't really do these YouTube shows to become an influencer. I do them because I want to share my knowledge of natural law, the English common law tradition as abrogated by American common law and the Bill of Rights, and help you guys understand that there is another way. Gold, silver, forming parallel systems, homeschooling your kids. I mean, look at the Amish. You know, look at their disease rates in the Amish community. Organic milk. I mean, come on, guys. Why can't you get organic milk in most states? All you got to do is drop a silver coin in there. It's an antibacterial. See, silver is amazing for so many things, right? At least that's, strike that, YouTube. According to many experts, YouTube, silver is an antimicrobial agent, an antimicrobial mineral, and up until the day of refrigerators, people kept their food fresh by putting silver in it, their liquids, for example, by dropping a silver coin in the milk bucket. So that's another thing that you probably didn't know, and that's what I like to share with people. Is I have a lot of knowledge that goes beyond just being a lawyer, being a blue-collar guy. So Lynn says, so just so you guys know a little bit about Lynn and why I want to help Lynn, and Lynn is a dude, not a girl. Lynn has 3 herniated discs and a fractured vertebrae, and handicapped in a wheelchair, and has to depend on the government to eat, and it doesn't last. So look, who knows, maybe we could help Lynn become an influencer, right? Get Lynn on YouTube and doing shows. Lynn is very smart. Lynn certainly has plenty of time to study history and become a great asset to the pro-human rights, pro-natural law community that I'm involved in. So anyways, guys, it's been a little over an hour. I need to put in some hours today. It's a Saturday, and I'm going to have to work about 10 hours to make up for the time I lost yesterday. I had a sciatica flare-up myself. Make sure to get donations to the channel, guys. Don't just like buy super chats. The donations, get memberships to the channel, because the donations in memberships enable me to get more people involved in Team MPE and share this message of natural law rights and real American history. So yeah, right, Oven Burn. Well, there are ways you can get organic milk by joining a collective where you buy an interest in the cow and then have the organic milk shipped to you. And I can even do a show about that. I'm just a little leery because YouTube doesn't like anything that the FDA or the DEA frowns upon. Yeah, now Nurse D says, and I'm assuming you're actually a real nurse, that organic castor oil with organic rosemary oil, mix 1 tablespoon of castor to 15 drops of rosemary, massage for 5 minutes to the area, and then cover with hot, wet rags. Do that for 2 days. Well, there you go. So right on, nurse. And it's always nice to see someone who's a nurse who actually understands natural healing. That's something that our government has forgotten. They even changed the legal definition of vaccine. It used to be that vaccine was, the definition was something like a, and I'm paraphrasing, a small amount of the actual virus would be injected into you to enable your body to develop natural resistance. And that was changed after mRNA, gene therapy, was put in these vials. And you can see that the changes, although they look subtle and the leftist-run news media told you it's not significant, many experts say it is very significant because it goes away from natural healing to an external source to modify your gene code based on what I've read. So always be careful. Again, what did Ronald Reagan say? When someone says I'm from the government and I'm here to help, run. So yeah, thanks, nurse. That was really good. Yeah, natural healing is really amazing. And that's one thing, you know, China was real big on natural healing and herbs and all that. And even modernly they're into that. And you don't really hear a lot of stories about Chinese people getting cancer unless they live near one of these factories where China's contaminating their land, or in the big cities with all the smog, which the World Health Organization and the WEF and the UN has basically excluded them from all these treaties, forcing us to change our ability to feed our families with factories, instead of allowing all that smog to come over the sea from China to your country. So look, China's really bad news, man. So this war against Venezuela is really going to hurt China and the BRICS currency system, and may give the United States an opportunity to abolish the Federal Reserve Bank and return us to a gold and silver standard, which is what I would like to see happen. One of my commenters mentioned earlier, this is about strengthening the US dollar. Gosh, I hope not, because the US dollar is fiat currency, and it's already lost over 90% of its value since 1913 with the creation of the Federal Reserve fiat currency in my opinion, unlawful banking system that was thrust upon us. And there's a great book you can read that I recommend called The Creature from Jekyll Island, if you want to learn more about that. The Creature from Jekyll Island. So, guys, I'm going to have to go. Yeah. So anyways, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save. Hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel.